I call the member for Budrum.
Well, thank you, Deputy Speaker. And what a rambling, incoherent contribution, both from the member for Waterford and for the man whose job she covets, the Leader of the Opposition as well. In fact, the member for Waterford couldn't even bring herself to sit next to the Leader of the Opposition for his budget reply speech. Couldn't bring him. Went to the old Labor playbook getting kicked out.
Pause the clock. Resume your seat, member for Budrum. Order. What's your point of order?
There is a convention to remark upon members' absences, and also I find the comment personally offensive, so I ask the member to withdraw.
I'll just take some advice. All right, I'll remind you of the convention around not commenting on members' absence from the chamber, and I'd ask you to withdraw the members taking personal offence.
I withdraw. The Leader of the Opposition says he speaks for Queenslanders. Well, he only speaks for 8.37% of Queenslanders from Hinchinbrook. He speaks for 8% less Queenslanders in Stafford than he did before the by-election. The Sharks are circling for the Leader of the Opposition, that much is clear. The leaks are coming from the Labor backbench. We read it in the Courier Mail today. And what we saw in that pathetic budget reply speech from the Leader of the Opposition was just more of the same Labor tropes, just myths, truths, trying to drive fear. The commentary and the language in relation to the Leader of the Opposition when he spoke about Indigenous representation and used the language of a purge was disgraceful. And that language is deliberately chosen by the Leader of the Opposition to whip up fear. It is a deliberate choice to try to stoke fear. And by contrast, our government, the Cabinet was in Cherbourg not 2 weeks ago. The entire Cabinet in Cherbourg, listening to Indigenous voices, something more than those opposite could never do when they were in government. Never did they take the entire Cabinet to an Indigenous community. They like to grandstand, but their record speaks more than their grandstanding words ever will, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, when the opposition leader was putting together this budget speech, he knew he had a problem. It's not a new problem for Labor, but it is a problem nonetheless, Deputy Speaker. And that problem is a lack of policies. And what do Labor do when they have no policies? They start another scare campaign. And this time, it's a scare campaign that important infrastructure isn't going to be built. That's their scare campaign. Now, ignoring the obvious fact that Labor didn't build that infrastructure, it's important to get a few facts on the table. Firstly, let's have a look at the Coomera Connector Stage 2. Now, you'd think, given the federal Labor government was providing funding for Stage 1, they'd also be keen to provide some funding for Stage 2. But you'd be wrong. The current design work on Stage 2 is only being funded by the Crisafulli government. And I can hear the silence from those opposite, and they know it's true. They know that the only level of government funding the Coomera Connector is the Crisafulli government, and their Labor mates in Canberra have done nothing. In fact, all their Labor mates in Canberra do is put a handbrake on major projects like the Coomera Connector. They do it with EPBC delays. That's their approach. So if those opposite really care about delivering the Coomera Connector, they should pick up the phone to Canberra. I'll stand with the member for Aspley, the former minister, tomorrow and call on Albo to fund the Coomera Connector if he has the courage to do so. But instead, what will we hear from those opposite? We'll hear crickets, because they don't really want to see this infrastructure built. And then there's the light rail extension. And there's the light rail extension to Bigger Waters, a project Labor never even thought about, let alone prioritised, never even considered. But our government is getting on with the job, building it, and now, yet, despite the announcement, despite the fact we're getting on with the job and Queenslanders will see it in 2028, they're saying the project's being defunded. I don't really know how you can defund something that's not been funded by those opposite ever, but nonetheless, that's their argument, Mr Speaker. Then there's the Gympie Road tunnel. 10 years those opposite had to progress work on that tunnel. 10 years. What do we get? 10 years of inaction. That's their record. In fact, the member for Aspley couldn't even finish upgrades on Gympie Road in his own electorate. Anyone who's driven down Gympie Road, that section of road...
Mr Clark, resume your seat, please, member for Budrum. What's your point of order, member for Aspley?
A couple of things. The minister's being deliberately misleading. Happy to write to you. And I also take personal offence and ask the member to withdraw.
Okay. If someone is misleading the House, there is a process to follow in relation to that. It does not need to be brought to my attention. You can pursue that other ways. I will issue a general warning that if anybody rises on that point, claiming that that is a point of order, I will be issuing a warning. The member's taken personal offence. You can withdraw.
I withdraw. The residents of Aspley take personal offence, Mr Deputy Speaker.
Point of order, Mr Speaker.
Resume your seat, please, Member for Buderim. Towards the clock.
I was directly referenced again. I'll take personal offence. Ask the member to withdraw.
I'll ask the member's taken personal offence. I'd ask you to withdraw.
On the point of order, Deputy Speaker, I'd seek your guidance. I spoke about residents of Aspley. I didn't speak about the member for Aspley in any way.
Order! Member for Lytton.
I understand the convention, Deputy Speaker, is to absolutely withdraw in the event that I'm speaking about an individual. I was not referring to the member for Aspley.
I'll take some advice. Resume your seat. Thank you for the clarification. There's no point of order. You can resume your contribution.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. As I was saying, the residents of Aspley should take offence at the fact that Gympie Road looked like a construction site until recently, when our government came in and cleaned up the mess left by the former Labor government. Rather than finish the work that they proposed to start on Gympie Road, they left it. They ran out of money. Their economic mismanagement was so
Order,
great.
Member for Pine Rivers.
They ran out of money in the member for Aspley's own electorate when he was the Minister for Transport and Main Roads, and they just stopped work. They didn't think, okay, what can we do differently? What can we do differently? How can we throw additional funding at this? How can we maybe change what we're trying to do? They just stopped work, and they left it, and I saw an abject failure and a testament. It is a testament to what we saw under the former Miles Labor government. Let's have a look at the Warrego Highway. Let's have a look at the Warrego Highway. And hasn't the Leader of the Opposition led with his chin on that one? He obviously forgot about the petition response he wrote back in 2017 when he said, in relation, and I hear those opposing, I'd be laughing about the fact that they in 2017 had an opportunity to upgrade the Mount Crosby interchange. And this is what he said at that point. And I'll table this document when I'm finished, Deputy Speaker. He said, quote, funding to progress this project further will now be subject to competing priorities across the state. Well, evidently those competing priorities didn't entail delivering that project for the benefit of the people of Ipswich and those to the west, Mr Speaker. And for further proof, you need only look at Labor's last budget that showed that the majority of funding for that project beyond the Fords, was cut and pushed out beyond the Fords. So let's be very, very clear. Those opposite had a choice today. They had a choice to come in here with a genuine policy alternative. And they did not. And I take the interjection from the member for Pine River. She said they did. Well, let's have a look at their comment in relation to paying interest on rental bonds. So let's maybe wind back to July 2022 when the member for Woodridge was the treasurer. What did they do back then? They actually changed the structure such that they took the funding for bonds into RTA and they sent it to consolidated revenue. They took rental bond revenue, the interest earned on rental bonds, and put it in consolidated revenue. So their actions speak louder than words, Deputy Speaker. Their actions speak louder than words, Deputy Speaker. Let's have a look at their fuel policy that they spoke so much about, which is based on RACQ modelling, which we still haven't seen in full, I might add. RACQ's own modelling has shown, and I refer to page 4 of that modelling, that wholesale prices jumped by more than 5 cents a day on 10 occasions during the period. So it begs the question, why would retailers sell at a loss? It is a nonsensical position that suggests that they would restock when they're selling at a loss, Deputy Speaker. RACQ's own modelling on page 8 has errors. It has errors.
Order, member for Aspley.
The median value on table 15 is higher than the maximum. So how can we trust a policy works when the figures aren't even correct, Deputy Speaker? Where are Sydney or Melbourne in the modelling? Where's Sydney and Melbourne? We've asked the member for Aspley to provide that in the original submission. He admitted that conveniently, and perhaps that's because it disproves what they're trying to peddle, Deputy
Resume
Speaker.
your seat, please, member for Buderim.
I take personal offence and ask the member to withdraw.
I'll just take some advice. Member, if you referred to the member for Aspley personally, can you please withdraw?
I withdraw, Deputy Speaker. So, Deputy Speaker, I would put to Queenslanders that those opposite do not have an evidence base to support their tenuous fuel position that they put forward. The only thing they are relying on is comparing Brisbane to Perth, which assumes that the cost structures across both of those states are the same, and they're not, particularly in regional parts of our state. And if those opposite are genuinely committed to prosecuting an argument based on fact, then table the advice. Table that modelling in full, not the parts that are convenient, in full. Even the parts that are convenient for their argument have flaws, Deputy Speaker. But let's turn to 50-cent fares, that wonderful LNP initiative, permanent 50-cent fares. Now, what we have seen, it's been disclosed, I spoke about it this morning, that Labor's attempt at legislative change would have excluded trains, ferries and light rail from 50-cent fares. That is a fact. In fact, the member for Aspley came in here yesterday and admitted it. They deliberately wanted to exclude trains, ferries and light rail from 50-cent fares,
Point of order, Mr.
or
Speaker.
they're incompetent. Which is it?
Point of order.
Resume your seat. What's your point of order?
I take personal offence and I ask him to withdraw. He's a bit obsessed with me, this Arvo.
I'll just take some advice. Yeah, there's no point of order. I didn't hear anything personal. You continue your contribution.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. So, as I called on the Leader of the Opposition this morning in question time, he had an opportunity to say whether this was a deliberate attempt to walk back from 50-cent fares, an LNP initiative to make 50-cent fares permanent on rail, on buses, on trams, on ferries. That's our record, that's our position. In fact, we'll be enshrining it in legislation. Labor's record is to try to walk that back. So it's either incompetence or deliberate deceit. Which is it, Deputy Speaker? Is this walking back? Is this laying the groundwork for Labor to walk back from 50-cent fares should they form government in 2028? Or is it incompetence, Deputy Speaker? Let's look at crime. Let's look at crime. Their record, crime up 193%. What do we hear from the Leader of the Opposition in his speech? A Community Safety Statistics Bureau, a bureau that would publish data less frequently than the Queensland Police do now. Another bureaucracy designed to talk about the problem rather than fix the problem. We already know their policy platform says that they want to raise the age of criminal responsibility to 14. That's their record. We know it's binding as well. Let's be very clear. That Labor policy platform is binding on every single one of those members opposite. Every single one. And so the Leader of the Opposition had an opportunity to come in here and he had an opportunity to state clearly that that was not Labor's policy, that they would be keeping the age of criminal responsibility at 10 as it should be, in my view, Deputy Speaker, but he didn't. Instead, he chose to talk about creating another bureaucracy to talk about the problem rather than fixing the problem. But, Deputy Speaker, I am incredibly proud to be a part of a government that's delivering a record $55.9 billion investment in roads and rail over the forward estimates. This is an investment that is about strengthening the foundations of a fresh start and building Queensland's future. It demonstrates our commitment to delivering major transport infrastructure, strengthening public transport, improving road safety outcomes and supporting connectivity right across the state, not just in the southeast, but in regional centres and right across the state. And together, we are delivering a more reliable transport network, one that's not built just for our current needs, but also for generations to come. I didn't hear the Leader of the Opposition talk about the Bruce Highway at all, not once. We're getting on with the job. $9 billion, funded 80-20 with the federal government, something those opposites said you could never do. They rolled over. They accepted 50-50. They couldn't get a deal done. We did it within the first 4 months of coming to government, and we're getting on with the job. $4.5 billion in projects will be contracted at the end of the next financial year, by the end of the next financial year, on the Bruce Highway Targeted Safety Program, something those opposite could never do, and they know it, which is why they can't talk about it, Deputy Speaker. We are focused on the things that matter most to Queenslanders. They are focused internally. We know the Leader of the Opposition has the sharks circling. We know the backbenchers lost faith. We know the Leader of the Opposition's flat out counting to 19 to count the numbers in his caucus. But to be very clear, Deputy Speaker, we will continue to work to deliver for Queenslanders. And this year's Q-Trip delivers exactly on our promise to do just that. $6.6 billion to maintain the road network. $6.6 billion. We inherited an $8 billion backlog maintenance number from those opposite because of incompetent ministers that were my predecessors in this role. Incompetent ministers who oversaw a decade of decline when it comes to Queensland roads. $5.75 billion for Logan and Gold Coast Faster Rail. We've started work. They love the project, but they couldn't actually start work on it. They never got on with it. We've awarded contracts. We're doing the work. The Wave, stage 1. Contracts awarded, getting on with the job. So, for those opposite, and I look forward to them going back to their communities and telling their communities about this. This budget delivers $34.3 billion for roads, $19.25 billion for railways, $1.6 billion for bus infrastructure, $312 million for active transport, $300 million for maritime infrastructure, and $103 million for multimodal and other infrastructure. It'll support 33,000 jobs just through the Q-Trip program alone. 33,000 Queenslanders in a job because of the Christopher government, when those opposite only have rocks to throw and only want to complain for the sidelines. We are not only investing in the infrastructure, we're also providing the much-needed support for Queensland families. And our investments are all about delivering. It's all about delivering a strengthened economy and keeping Queensland a great place to live, to work and to play. And this is a budget for Queenslanders no matter where they live. And I want to talk about what it means for my community on the Sunshine Coast. My community on the Sunshine Coast knows...
Order, members.
My community on the Sunshine Coast know that those opposite never care about the Sunshine Coast, and it's why they have no representation there on the Sunshine Coast whatsoever. Those opposite have failed the Sunshine Coast over the last 30 years they've been in office. The Malula River Interchange, cut by Labor. We're delivering it right now, Deputy Speaker. Heavy rail to Caloundra. They said they'd do it by 2015. An LNP government are getting on with it, Deputy Speaker. The Wave all the way to the Sunshine Coast Airport. We're delivering it, Deputy Speaker. Those opposite fail the Sunshine Coast every single time, and residents know it. And I'm pleased to be part of the government delivering a budget that delivers for the sunny coast, whether it's kids at Mountain Creek State School who will have a covered basketball court and shade sails over their playground areas under the Christopher government. Those opposite couldn't even think about that, Deputy Speaker, let alone deliver it. Our government is committed to delivering, and we'll continue to do just that.
Time's expired. The House will come to order. Order. Member for Miller. I call the member for Woodridge.
Acting Speaker. Not